He took picture after picture of sundials. He designed our family sundial. He wrote a book about sundials. He was given a lifetime membership in the North American Sundial Society. Are there any accounting majors here? No, it's exciting to be with those guys. You go to the sundial. Look at it. So, among my father's many fabulous ideas was he wanted to turn the Washington Monument into a giant sundial. If you go there, the next month or so is very good in March and April. During cherry blossom time, the sundial, I think they call it the Washington Monument shadow, extends to the north, and you can walk along with it like this. It like moves along in real time. It's quite cool. And the idea then would be to have these giant plinths. On the mall, on the National Mall, that one you could use to reckon time. Now, plinth is a fabulous word. It means the stone that the statue sits on. That's a plinth. So next time you're playing Scrabble, let me just tell you, one vowel. You need a P, and those are hard to get. So instead of having these terraces to keep the terrorists out, we would have these plinths. It would be just big fun. Anyway, for some reason, my father's genius went unrecognized. It's still not a sundial. But I grew up with this sundial. All these people talking about sundials, all these sundials over the house, sundials. All right. So I was because of people like you watching the Science Guy show. I got invited to a meeting at Cornell about Mars. And they had engineering drawings out on the table. This was for these two rovers called MER in those days, Mars Exploration Rover. And before it was called Spirit and Opportunity. Big engineering drawings on a big long table, just like in the movies. And then pinned to the bulletin board, they had this picture of this thing there that they had. And you see, it's a lot better than the last year's model of the thing. And I wondered what it was. I did wonder what this thing was. And he said, well, Bill, that's the photometric calibration target. Photometric calibration. Now, I don't want to frighten you, but I did work at Boeing. There's a piece on the 747 that I kind of designed.
Wow. Nice.
I feel like it was my tube. It's a tube about that long. It took me 3 years. It took about 2 years, 2.5 years to convince my boss that we needed this tube. And the reason it took so long is because it added weight to the airplane. You're never supposed to add weight. That's evil. No weight. You are fired. So I'm looking at these drawings, and I see the photometric calibration target. Now, to refresh your memory, the Viking spacecraft had little color coupons, little color swatches, and it had the blue star field of the U.S. flag, which apparently was the real thing that triggered this. Hey, the blue star field looks purple. I think the sky's the wrong color. So if you've never done this, I strongly encourage you to do this. Go outside on a sunny day, like tomorrow, with something very white, like a white shirt, a napkin, a piece of paper, something, and cast a shadow on it with a pen, or your finger, or your friend's head. And then look at the shadow. And the shadow will be gray. Yes, Uncle Bill, thank you. But if you look closely, you will see that the shadow is ever so slightly light blue. Ever so slightly. And most of us go through our whole lives without ever noticing them. Oh, there are a few artists out here, photographers, who know the difference between daylight and indoor light, and they can tell you why, and they'll babble on about color temperature and all this stuff. But most people go through their whole lives without ever taking note of this. But the Martian photographers had noticed this 30 years ago. And so they contrived to send this thing all the way to Mars, this big, with a metal stick sticking up, to do nothing but cast a shadow onto these gray rings. And it took me a few moments of looking at this drawing to realize that I had to jump out of my chair. You guys, we got to turn the photometric calibration target into a sundial.
Genius.
Come on, people. And they're looking at me, Bill, it's Mr. Nye, right? Because we all have PhDs. Listen. We don't tell time with sundials. You know, Bill, I see you're wearing a watch. No, that would be cool. We could reckon time on another world. It'd be like speaking Vulcan. Real. Come on. And 3 days went by. Steve Squires, principal investigator, said, okay. So, my friends, there are 2 Mars dials on Mars. And here's a picture of one. Now, what would you guys be doing if you weren't here? That's right. Pretty soon there will be, crimes investigation Tampa. Crimes investigation Cleveland. So just to remind you, there is no one on Mars to take this picture. Computer renders. But right there is the Mars dial. See, and it casts a shadow. Even now, there are tens of thousands of pictures of the Mars dials because we use them to calibrate the camera. And indeed, if you look right here, and I'll do this for you. If you look right here, you can see the shadow is gray, but it's also some other thing. It's orange or salmon or taupe or ecru or eggshell or whatever. And so we use that color on these different colored gray rings to get the color of the camera right, color of the pictures right, every day. Every sol, as it's called. Now, if my father were here, he would remind us that sundials should have a motto. They should give you something to think about. I only count the sunny hours. Life is but a shadow. These are typical models. They're being laughed. Woodruff Sullivan, the guy who worked on the Mars dials, there's 7 of us that worked on this thing. He knows of one in France, a sundial in France. And it says, every hour injures, the last one kills. It's existentialism, a French Camus and those guys, the strange. Life sucks and then you die.
The stranger. Oh my goodness.
Well, with that said,
He made a stranger
we
reference.
have a very cool motto on Mars. In English, which is the language of aerospace when these things were created. By the way, it says Mars in 16 other languages around the top surface. Everything on the dial, by the way, that is not used for telling time is called the sundial's furniture. So, your motto is 2 worlds, 1 sun.
Nice.
That's correct. But that's kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
I never thought about it. Any shadow on Mars must be cast by light from the same light-giving star as a shadow on Earth. That's kind of cool. Yes?
Yeah.
It's sitting there. No matter what happens to us, it's sitting there. We did something. And by the way, I want to reassure you, I did do some work on the thing. I did the vibration analysis, which is my old business. The thing that sticks up on a sundial is called the gnomon. And this one I brought to the party. The gnomon on a sundial that you're probably familiar with is a triangle, right? When you get to the tropics, between tropic and Cancer, tropic Capricorn on Earth, the sun is